Sometimes what destroys you isn't the disease, but the silence around it. In the private wing of one of America's most prestigious hospitals, a billionaire lay dying. 17 of the nation's top specialists surrounded him, debating, prescribing, and failing. Machines hummed, monitors beeped, and hope dwindled with each hour. But there was someone else in that room, an elderly black housekeeper named Samuel, quiet and invisible as always. To the doctors, he was background noise, a shadow moving with a mop. To the billionaire, he didn't exist at all. And yet, Samuel's eyes caught something none of them noticed. A detail so small it seemed meaningless, until it revealed the truth. A truth that would save a life, expose a betrayal, and shatter the illusion that wisdom belongs only to those with titles. The question was, would anyone listen to him before it was too late? Samuel Jameson was 71 years old. His hands were roughened by decades of work. His back slightly bent, but his eyes, sharp, steady, endlessly observant, remained the same as when he was a young man. By day, he moved silently through polished corridors and luxurious rooms. By night, he returned to a small one-bedroom apartment in Baltimore, alone except for his books, old medical texts, biology journals, and chemistry notes he had collected in his youth. Long before society pushed him into invisibility, Samuel had dreamed of being a doctor. In the 1970s, he was one of only a handful of black students admitted into a competitive pre-med program. He'd excelled in anatomy, chemistry, toxicology. Professors remarked on his meticulous eye, his ability to notice what others missed. But dreams were expensive, and the system was unforgiving. His father fell ill, his mother worked 2 jobs, and Samuel became the provider. Racism made scholarships scarce, opportunities scarcer. One semester turned into a leave of absence, which turned into the end. He never returned to finish his degree. Instead, life became survival. Custodial jobs, maintenance, housekeeping, invisible labor that kept buildings running but faces unseen. Yet Samuel never let go of knowledge. While others saw a janitor, he saw himself as a lifelong student. He read toxicology journals borrowed from libraries, medical studies downloaded late at night, research papers scavenged from recycling bins in the university district. Knowledge became his quiet rebellion against a world that told him he was unworthy of it. And now, decades later, he worked nights in the elite wing of Johns Hopkins Medical Center, a place where billionaires bought privacy, surrounded by mahogany walls and golden lamps that disguised medical equipment. One of those billionaires was Victor Statham, a tech mogul in his early 60s, whose empire spanned Silicon Valley and beyond. For years, he had built his reputation on innovation and ruthlessness. But money couldn't save him from the illness that had been eating him alive for months. Victor had flown in the best minds. Cardiologists, neurologists, toxicologists, internists, 17 specialists rotated in and out of his private suite. They tried every conventional pathway: autoimmune diseases, cancers, degenerative conditions. But the billionaire deteriorated anyway. Machines beeped steadily beside him. His skin had grown pale, his body weak, his heart unstable. His empire was holding its breath. And so were the doctors, though none dared admit it aloud. Samuel entered that suite every night to dust surfaces, mop the floor, refill supplies. He moved carefully, blending into the background. To the doctors, he was a fixture, unnoticed, unacknowledged. But Samuel noticed everything. And in Victor's room, he noticed something strange. On the nightstand sat a porcelain teacup, imported, delicate, rimmed with gold. Beside it, a carved wooden box containing sachets of loose-leaf tea. The scent was faint but distinct, earthy, herbal, bitter. At first, Samuel thought nothing of it. But over time, he realized something unusual. Every day, Victor drank this tea religiously, sometimes prepared by his assistant, sometimes by his old friend and frequent visitor, Richard Cole, a business rival turned supportive ally. And every day after he drank it, Victor seemed to weaken. His speech slurred, his heart monitor faltered, his skin grew gray. Samuel's old training stirred. He began cataloging symptoms silently: arrhythmia, fatigue, tremors, gastrointestinal distress. He noted Victor's fingernails, slightly discolored. His breathing, irregular, shallow at times. These weren't random. They were patterns. Patterns Samuel recognized. Patterns he'd once studied in a toxicology seminar 40 years ago. And deep in his mind, a shocking possibility began to take root. But who would ever listen to an old black housekeeper over 17 world-renowned specialists? The following days blurred into crisis. Victor's condition worsened. His empire trembled as board members whispered about succession. The media speculated endlessly. The hospital wing became a fortress of power and panic. Doctors argued over exotic diagnoses. Autoimmune cascade, one suggested. Rare neurodegenerative disorder, another countered. They ordered test after test, each coming back inconclusive. Meanwhile, Samuel continued his work, silent but watchful. Each night he found the same detail. The tea, always present, always consumed, always followed by a worsening of symptoms. One evening, as he refilled supplies in the suite, Samuel caught a conversation. Dr. Amelia Cross, a neurologist, sighed heavily. "We've ruled out everything. His body is shutting down, and I don't know why." Dr. Howard Lynn shook his head. "It doesn't make sense. The labs don't match any known progression. It's as if he's being poisoned. But that's impossible. We've tested his food, water, air quality." Samuel froze. Poisoned. The word echoed in his mind. He glanced at the nightstand. The teacup gleamed under the lamplight. That's when it clicked. Decades ago, in his toxicology seminar, Samuel had studied a case. Foxglove, the plant source of digitalis. In small doses, it strengthened weak hearts. In large or prolonged exposure, it caused cardiac arrest. Symptoms included exactly what Victor was experiencing: arrhythmias, nausea, dizziness, fainting, nail discoloration. It wasn't random. It wasn't mystery. It was textbook digitalis toxicity, and it was coming from that tea. The imported longevity blend, celebrated in wellness circles, secretly contained foxglove leaves. Safe in moderation, fatal in excess. Samuel's heart pounded. He had found the answer. But when he tried to speak, no one listened. That night, he approached a nurse he trusted. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "Mr. Statham's symptoms, they match digitalis poisoning. Has anyone tested his tea?" The nurse frowned, then offered a tight smile. "Sir, I appreciate your concern, but please, leave the medicine to the doctors. Dismissed." Again. But Samuel refused to let it go. He began keeping a notebook, recording Victor's symptoms, the timing of tea consumption, and the progression of decline. He even researched the brand, finding an article about its rare, exotic ingredients. Natural digitalis glycosides. The evidence mounted. But the more he observed, the more the danger became clear. Victor wasn't just sick. He was being poisoned, and Samuel suspected Richard Cole, the so-called friend who never arrived without a fresh box of longevity tea. One night, Samuel entered the suite to find Victor unconscious, monitors blaring. Doctors swarmed, calling out orders. "He's crashing!" Someone yelled. Adrenaline surged through the room. Defibrillators shocked. Medications pumped. Chaos reigned. Samuel stood at the edge, helpless, heart breaking. He wanted to shout, to scream the truth. But who would listen? The crisis passed. Victor stabilized. For now. But Samuel knew the next collapse might be the last, and so he made a decision. He would risk everything. His job, his dignity, his silence. Because saving Victor's life meant finally being seen. The conference room buzzed with grim energy. The 17 specialists gathered, reviewing failed interventions. Dr. Cross spoke with weary resignation. "We are out of time. His organs are failing. If we don't find the cause today, we will lose him." The door opened. Samuel stepped inside, uniform still on, mop handle gripped like a staff. Heads turned, frowns forming. "This is a closed meeting," Dr. Lynn snapped, but Samuel's voice cut through, steady and resonant. "Mr. Statham is being poisoned by the tea he drinks every day." The room froze. "Impossible," someone muttered. Samuel walked forward, laying his notebook on the table. Pages filled with observations, symptoms, timings. "Look at the pattern. The arrhythmias, the fainting, the nail discoloration. Textbook Digitalis Toxicity. I studied this decades ago. He is being poisoned by foxglove in that imported tea." Dr. Cross flipped through the notes, her eyes widening. "This aligns perfectly." Dr. Lynn shook his head. "You expect us to take the word of a janitor over 17 specialists." Samuel straightened, his eyes fierce. "Not a janitor. A former medical student. I had to leave school to feed my family. But I never stopped learning. And I see what you missed." The room fell silent. Dr. Cross spoke again, urgency sharpening her tone. "If he's right, the treatment is digoxin-specific antibody fragments. Immediate administration could save him." A tense pause. Then Dr. Lynn relented. "Run a toxicology test. Now." Minutes later, results arrived. Elevated digitalis levels off the charts. Chaos erupted. Orders flew. The antidote was prepared, injected. Samuel stood frozen, heart pounding as the monitors beeped wildly. For a breathless moment, Victor flatlined. Then, beep. A steady rhythm. Another, stronger. His vitals stabilized. Gasps filled the room. Against all odds, he lived. Samuel closed his eyes, relief flooding him. He had been right. And finally, they had listened. Victor recovered slowly, his empire saved along with his life. Richard Cole was arrested after toxicology reports confirmed Samuel's theory. Investigators found traces of foxglove in every box of tea he had supplied. The motive: corporate takeover, a rival's greed. But the true story wasn't about betrayal. It was about visibility. For the first time in decades, Samuel wasn't invisible. Doctors who had walked past him without a glance now stopped, shook his hand, thanked him. Nurses who had dismissed him whispered apologies. Victor himself, pale but alive, looked Samuel in the eyes. "You saved me," he whispered. Samuel nodded quietly. "I only saw what others refused to." News of the housekeeper who solved what 17 specialists missed spread like wildfire. Some called him a hero, others a miracle worker. But Samuel didn't care about the headlines. What mattered was the truth. Wisdom could live anywhere, even in those society trained itself not to see. The shocking twist. Samuel had once been on track to become a doctor himself. Life had stolen that chance, but it hadn't stolen his mind. His years of invisibility had only sharpened it. As he left the hospital one evening, Samuel paused under the fading light, watching the world move around him. For once, people looked, and truly saw. He smiled faintly, not with pride, but with quiet satisfaction. And then, with the weight of a lifetime behind him, he asked the question that lingered in every listener's mind. How many truths are lost? How many lives? Because society refuses to hear the voices it chooses not to see. Watch our previous video for another powerful story of injustice and redemption. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps these stories reach the world.